This podcast is part of the Gonna Geek Network. The opinions expressed may not reflect those of other podcasts or affiliates of this show or Gonna Geek. Check out other geeky podcasts at gonnageek.com. And get ready because geekiness commences in 3, 2, 1...
You have been granted clearance level 10. Stand by for S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents of equal or higher security clearance.
And now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Stargate Pioneer.
I'm Agent Haley.
And I'm Agent Lauren.
Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's a podcast about the television show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the general Marvel Universe. And that's great because we're out of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes. So this week we talk about Iron Man. Just a reminder, you can find us at legendsofshield.com. We have a voicemail line, 844-THE-BUS-1 or 844-843-2871. By the way, our contact information, Twitters, Facebooks, emails, can be found at the legendsofshield.com webpage in the top right-hand corner. How are you this week, Lauren?
I am so excellent.
Excellent, dude. Little Bill and Ted's going on, huh?
Yeah. It's, I had a great weekend last weekend, so yes.
Yes, we'll have to talk about that in a later episode. Haley, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Rolling. So, we had an interesting week, didn't we, guys?
Yes, we did.
A lot of feedback, basically. I saw some things floating on Twitter between Kodiak and yourself, Lauren. So, you want to run through what this theory is that you got going on about Ward?
Okay, so this past weekend, I was up in Dallas hanging out with a friend of mine who, anytime I mention, my friend that I, text when I'm watching S.H.I.E.L.D., that's her. So I ended up mentioning that we had that big who shot the dog discussion. And her opinion that she talked out with another friend of hers who watches the show is that she thinks that Ward did shoot the dog, but this kind of relates how he didn't quite kill Fitzsimmons. Because in her opinion, or one way to look at his characterization is that he gave the dog a chance to run. And afterwards, he could justify it to himself as, oh, well, I gave the dog a chance. It should have hid. It should have taken care of itself better because I take care of myself. So therefore, it should have too. And with Fitzsimmons, he could have justified to himself as, well, I put them in this pod and I gave them a chance. And if they die, well, they should have tried harder. I know what's in that pod because if I remember correctly, it is the medical pod that Skye was delivered in Tahiti. I was looking at that this time around. So he might be able to just kind of justify it to himself as, I gave them a fighting chance.
Yeah, he could have.
I'm still convinced that Garrett was the one who shot the dog, but I do think that that's also an equally valid interpretation.
There are many interpretations.
There are many interpretations.
Haley, what's your take on it?
I'm just really not sure at this point. Because I think if you were going to have it be Ward shot the dog, then you would have seen it. Like, you would have seen him holding the gun.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I just don't know.
There's a lot of things that they took out, though, at the end of the episode with the whole Wheaton-esque moment of killing Garrett. There was that scene that was taken out of Garrett basically coming out of the coffin and killing those two guys that were taking the coffin out. So they could have filmed it and decided to take it out for whatever reason. But based on what was shown, I agree. You don't know. So we'll just see how that goes. So we also got a voicemail from my co-host on the Starling Tribune, and he's also Haley's co-host, isn't he?
Yes, on a Gallifrey Public Radio, available at gallifreypublicradio.com or gonnageek.com.
Yes, both Starling Tribune and Gallifrey Public Radio can be found on gonnageek.com. So Here's what Jay had to say about last episode.
Hey guys, this is Jay. I was just calling in to comment on the series finale or season finale of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I have to agree with Lauren in that the part at the end with Skye and Deathlock seemed very Whedon. It was very subdued, and it didn't need a lot of explanation. It's something that Whedon likes to do. Yeah, it's very reminiscent of like Mal and Shepard book in Serenity, when Mal's like, "You've got to tell me how you know all this stuff." Book's just like, No, I don't. Yeah, it's just you don't have to have the explanation if you get the point across anyway. But I'm hoping that Ward remains evil. I don't want to see a redemption from him, at least in the next season. After that, maybe, depending on how he does, but we'll see. Anyway, I love what you guys are doing, and I look forward to doing the movie rewatch.
Thank you very much for the voicemail, Jay. So if I remember his voicemail correctly, we got two different points going on. We got a point about Skye and Peterson's last moment up on the cliff, and then we've got the point about Ward. So, Haley, which one do you want to take?
I'll talk about Ward. I kind of think they are going to bring him back next season since they didn't outright kill him, and probably use him as an asset in as a prisoner form.
Yeah, they pretty much said that he's coming back. They just haven't let on in what capacity yet. So I still maintain I don't want him around just the way I am. So who knows? At the end of next season, I might like him.
So out of curiosity, y'all's opinion on Ward, is it so strong because y'all feel personally betrayed by him? I was wondering about this week.
No, I was pretty clear. I think he's stupid.
I was not interested in him. I feel like they waited too long to try and make him interesting, and by the time they did, it was just annoying.
But in going back and looking at some of the earlier episodes, which we have been doing, he did play his character well. Could the character have been crafted a little bit better? More like Baltar, for instance, on BSG? Maybe, but I think for them not to give anything away, they kind of had to have him play this way. If this series goes on for a while, there'll be contention on how the whole thing was handled up until turn for a very long time. And it's not unique to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. either. Take a look at the first 2.5 seasons almost of Star Trek The Next Generation, or, Buffy, or, any number of shows. The first season is not necessarily the best one. So I'm willing to give shows a pass into season 2 in this day and age. So we'll just see how it goes. That's my standpoint of it.
I guess I will tackle the Skye and Mike Peterson thing. Again, more thinking about this stuff during the week. I think the reason I liked that scene is because it's Skye acknowledging that she's respecting his choice. She's not bringing him in. She's not forcing him to do something else that he doesn't particularly want to do. After all this time that he's been forced to do, basically just be a weapon, she's letting him do stuff on his own terms again. And I think that made it just a much more meaningful moment. Yes, it was low key, but I really liked that.
And I've been thinking about this over the last week. I think the reason Coulson sent Skye instead of May is because he wanted Peterson to come back because he wanted to come back. He's friends with Skye, so he's going to come because she asked.
And I think ultimately he's going to be doing good deeds. He just wants to go off and do them on his own, so he didn't want to join the team. We have not seen the last of him. We're going to see him next season. I don't know how much, but we're going to see him next season, so we'll see how it turns out. So thank you to Jay. Thank you to Shadow River, which is Lauren's friend. Thank you to Mr. Kodiak. We appreciate the feedback on Twitter and in person and on voicemail. Keep it coming, guys. Ask us anything to do with just about anything. But, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the season finale, how do you guys think season 2 is going to go? We'll be talking about it all summer long, so just give us a shout out. We have some news, some of which we kind of stashed for a week after the finale because our episode kind of went long last week, but some of it is new this week. Matter of fact, some of it is new as of today, isn't it, Lauren?
Yes, it is. So actually, this dates from yesterday. Man of Steel sequel writer David Goyer calls Marvel's She-Hulk a giant green porn star and insults geeks. On a podcast called Script Notes, among other screenwriters, David Goyer, who wrote Man of Steel, among other things, but that's what everyone's fixating on because he's also involved with writing the Batman versus Superman movie and Justice League and just all sorts of other stuff for DC. I want to say I think he might have had some input on the Batman movies, but I don't know how right I am. I'd have to go back and check. But anyway, when they were talking about writing Justice League and everything, Goyer became more open about his thoughts when the host randomly assigned each a superhero and asked them to discuss how they'd go about adapting the character for film or television. And the Hulk came up as a reboot possibility, and then the discussion veered into the topic of Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, the gamma-irradiated cousin of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. And then David Goyer said, quote, "I have a theory about She-Hulk. She was created by a man, right? And at the time, I think 95% of comic book readers were men, and certainly all of the comic book writers were men. So the Hulk was this classic male power fantasy. It's like most of the people reading comic books were these people like me who were just these little kids getting, the blank kicked out of them every day. And so then they created She-Hulk, right? Who was still smart. I think She-Hulk is the chick that you could blank if you were the Hulk. You know what I'm saying? She-Hulk was the extension of the male power fantasy. So it's like, if I'm going to be this geek who becomes the Hulk, let's create a giant green porn star that only the Hulk could blank. So first of all, she's his cousin. Second of all, her series has always been about her, balancing her professional life and being more uninhibited as the Hulk and just basically being awesome. And Stan Lee, in response to this today, said that, "I know I was looking for a new female superhero and the idea of an intelligent Hulk type grabbed me. The generally accepted backstory has more to do with Marvel's concerns that CBS might create a spin-off of the live-action Incredible Hulk television series starring a female counterpart." Yes, the internet was very unhappy with David Goyer. I am one of the ones who's very unhappy about David Goyer. And the most commonly seen response that I've seen is, well, this explains why Rocket Raccoon got a movie before Wonder Woman.
Yeah, reading that made me want to turn into a giant green rage monster and smash Goyer.
Pretty much.
I can't argue with either of you two, so obviously I'm not going to. But do you guys think that the comic book kind of universe needs to change a little bit, or do you think that it's okay the way it is?
It is actually changing. A lot of the writers and artists, I think with the advent of social media being what it is, they're getting a lot more direct feedback from the fans. So you can see who's a horrible person really easily, and you can know, people are voting with their dollars because comics is still a fairly small industry in terms of they don't get the millions and millions of dollars that movies do. So you know who to avoid. And voting with your dollars works a lot better than, if you're trying to avoid a certain director or something like that. And you've seen it a lot, especially in recent years with Marvel, I've noticed, where they're trying to spotlight a lot of their female characters, their minority characters, whether it's racial minority or gender minority, listening to a lot more of their fan feedback and seeing what's getting positive reaction. DC, okay, full disclosure, I'm not as much of a DC fan as I am a Marvel fan. But from what I saw with the backlash from when they tried to relaunch with the New 52, things like Red Hood and the Outlaws, I don't think they've been as good about it as Marvel has in recent years, but I could be very wrong. I would like to hope that I'm wrong. And of course, there's a lot of the smaller house books, which have always been a lot better about that sort of thing.
I'll be kind of, to kind of capitalize on your theme of voting with your dollars, I'll be a little interested to see if the whole thing over Bryan Singer has an impact on the X-Men release this weekend. I doubt it will. So I'm just kind of curious to see what the general public thinks of the accusations in relation to X-Men. So I don't know how that's going to affect the comics or David Goyer in particular here. I'm just kind of interested to see how the community in general responds to it. Any last words on that, Haley?
Haley smash.
So we did get a new trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy. It seems like every week we get a new trailer on one of these comic book movies, but this one I really liked it. It drew you a little bit more into the story. It showed you a little bit more of the stupid raccoon.
Hey, Rocket's not stupid.
You're stupid.
who gets a... No, I actually like him. I mean, I don't want to mess with the Raccoon because he's being voiced by an A-Team member, and you don't mess with the A-Team. So I'm all cool with it.
So just out of curiosity, do you know what Rocket's backstory is in the comic?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, and again, I am kind of a noob to Guardians of the Galaxy, but if I remember correctly, there is this like planet where there's all these inmates who they try to keep them under control with genetically engineered, cute, fuzzy little animals. And this gave him a lot of problems because raccoons are actually very vicious animals. And so he's intelligent, he is unstable, and he did not like being there. And that's why he busted out. And again, I might be getting this wrong. I'm sorry if I am. I really need to go and read like the latest run on Guardians of the Galaxy because I've heard it's really good. From what I've heard, start with Annihilation Conquest. But yeah, he is a former prison guard or mental hospital planet guard who did not like his job.
Well, obviously, he is highly skilled with heavy weaponry, so I am looking forward to seeing that. And oh, by the way, I took your recommendation last week. I ordered Next Wave in print. It hasn't gotten here yet, but I can't wait to start reading that. And I will delve into this one because I've got some time to see some of the backstory, read some of the backstory before the movie comes out. I like the trailer. Did you guys see the trailer?
Yes, I watched it 4 times.
Haley?
Yes, I did several times.
Yeah, did you guys like it?
I am Groot. That means yes.
Hodor. So we also have some ending season 1 interviews from Jed and Maurissa. There were news stories that came out. And Lauren, you ran into this. We wanted to talk about it last time. We just didn't have time, but you can go ahead and talk about it now.
All right. The article is on BuzzFeed, and it's called What the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Bosses Learned from That Tumultuous First Season. And it's a really good interview where they went and they talked to them. This was, if I remember right, conducted before the renewal was announced. And so they were talking to them about things like, when did you decide that Agent Ward would be a sleeper agent? When we started conceptualizing the show with Joss, knowing that this was coming, we knew there would have to be some sort of personal toll. And there's the version of it where someone gets injured, but since this is an infiltration based on a betrayal on a massive scale, we wanted it to have it on the small scale and have it be a really personal dagger to the heart. Which is why I'm wondering why there's such this like animosity against Ward everywhere, because it was, such a personal thing. Knowing what you know now about what it really takes to make the show while keeping your secrets, you look back on day 1 and think, what innocent young children we were then. And they're talking about things like things getting leaked, asking about how working with Marvel was, how the effects were. This is a fun bit. I'll read this. Let's turn toward that finale. First of all, I lost my mind when Garrett ripped out that guy's rib and then stabbed him with it. As twisted as that sounds, that's been something I wanted to get on screen for a while, and I'm so happy it landed at 8 o'clock on ABC. Just for a reminder, this is part of the team that brought you Spartacus on Stars, so I'm also very happy that they got this on TV. But yeah, it's a good interview. There's a lot of it.
The whole Paxtoning, rib pulling out and then stabbing thing, it's important to note. At 8 o'clock, they didn't actually show the rib coming out of the general's cage, and they didn't actually show the general getting stabbed with the rib. It was all very much implied. It actually happened. I mean, there's no getting around it, but they didn't actually gruesomely show it like they might have on HBO or something. Like if it was Game of Thrones, that would have been a lot more gruesome scene than it was.
If it was Spartacus, it would have been a lot more gruesome scenes because I've seen some really gruesome stuff on Spartacus.
That too. I have not seen Spartacus.
Oh, you should. One of us.
Yes, ma'am. So we also have one final news item, very similar to that one, except for this one was on Zapit. Basically, this interview happened after the season 2 was announced, and so they tried to get them to talk a little bit about season 2. They didn't, and it basically went into a lot of the same things. One of the things they talked about was what was behind your decision to fully kill off John Garrett, and they said they needed to end the season off with characters having a win, and I think that's important. That is something that I need in a series. And not to say that all series are going to give me that, but I need to have those small wins. And like that, I just watched the Person of Interest finale. It was pretty bleak. They changed the whole landscape of everything, but they gave the characters small wins. Like they survived, and that was a win. In this case, killing Garrett off completely, and how completely can you kill a character off in Marvel Universe when anybody can come back? And oh, by the way, I talked to Wing, and he said he was watching the Avengers movie, and he said that Sitwell did not splat. Sitwell could have easily been underneath the truck and not killed.
Because that's a good place to be, underneath a truck on the freeway.
You can survive that. I would be interested to see if they bring Garrett back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., how they would describe him or write him back. But anyway, so that was one of the things that they said is we wanted to give people a win and a whole bunch of other stuff. These are 2 good articles. I highly suggest you read them. I'll put them in the show notes. And as we get closer to season 2, I'm guessing we'll see a lot more of these 2 giving season 2 prep interviews.
Or just putting out silly YouTube videos, because they do that too.
Apparently, yes. Yeah. Okay, one last thing. We said we were going to look into episode 4, and because there was some sort of callback to the etchings that Coulson and Garrett were doing in the season finale, and we found out some cool stuff. Because I didn't remember this, but the whole Achille Amador episode where they find out that she's being controlled the whole time, and Ward actually does a mission that she is supposed to do, he ends up going into this room with just chalkboards all the way around. And so he has to go in and basically take a screenshot of some writings on the chalkboard, and it turns out that some of the sketches are pretty much identical to what Coulson and Garrett were doing. But there is also an extra added thrill that Lauren looked into, right?
Yeah, there is what looks like squiggly fake letters. Except I looked at those squiggly fake letters and I was like, I've seen this before. This is very familiar to me. So a little bit of Googling, and it turns out that it is the Skrull alphabet, which readers of Secret Invasion will recognize. Unfortunately, according to the outhousers.com, it's gibberish. They provided the key, and it is in fact just like random letters.
But their analysis was done last October, so it was
their analysis was done like last October, so it was before we knew what any of this meant.
Mm-hmm. Well, we still don't know what it means, but we know
still
it
don't know what it
has some higher level functions. So go ahead and check it out. If you're just watching the episode without any commercials in it, it is roughly around the 33-minute mark. So we watched Iron Man this week, didn't we?
We sure did.
I had forgotten how much I really like this movie. It is my second favorite Marvel movie. My first is The Avengers. My second is Iron Man. But I had forgotten how good it really was because it's been probably more than a year since I watched the whole thing.
See, I watch it every time it's on FX. So
yeah, I don't get to watch many movies on TVs these days just because my TV viewing is so minimal in comparison to what it used to be. But yeah, I guess, hey, good question. When it's on FX, what do they take out? Because they usually take out some stuff.
What do they take out?
It's a good TV movie, though,
It
right?
is a good TV movie. I mean, it's not exceptionally graphic. There's not like a lot of cussing. Nothing really stands out right now. They probably have some stuff edited for time, but like off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
I can't think of anything that FX would have to take out for content.
Yeah. I mean, considering this is the network that shows Sons of Anarchy. Oh, Jax Teller's butt.
So this movie basically started the Marvel Cinematic Universe and therefore led into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. via the one-shots and everything else. This was a phenomenal restart too, because it had been out there a couple of times. We had a couple of Hulk movies before this, and other cheesier movies in the 70s, 80s, whatever.
It kind of redefined the comic book movie.
Yeah, it did.
It was great, and it modernized it. It took it into, this came out in 2009? So it modernized it to the evolution of Iron Man coming out of Afghanistan versus, I believe, Vietnam in the comic books.
I actually, right after I watched the movie, I reread the origin story, which is in Tales of Suspense number 39, and it's very, very similar.
Yeah, originally it was Vietnam. And then in, I think, the 90s, they did kind of a revamp of the Marvel Universe, and they redid it to Iraq, I want to say.
One of the things that I noticed in the movie, it holds up really well, at least right now. And it's 2014, basically summer 2014 now. So it still holds up. One notable exception, at least, that stuck out to me was Tony Stark mentions a MySpace page.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not like everybody's forgotten what MySpace is. I mean, just nobody uses them anymore. It's not like, you know, if somebody was to mention, you know, like Ask Jeeves now.
Oh, wow.
I was just talking about Ask Jeeves like a week ago with my sister.
Yeah, it's like I was trying to tell somebody like, oh, remember back in the day before Google existed when we had to use all these other search engines, and then, you know, there still wasn't like a good aggregator because every search engine pulled up something different.
I was on, I believe, IO9 today, and I pulled up a story about the 10 most common algorithms that affect us today. And one of the ones they talked about was the Google search algorithm. And I thought before this, you know, Google came out with their search algorithm and their page prioritization and that sort of thing, I thought the search engine that I used to use all the time was Alta Vista, then Yahoo, and now Google. So this stuff has all morphed rather quickly within the past 15 years or so.
It really has.
But this movie still holds up, and I think it will hold up for a little while longer.
I think part of the reason it will is because so much of it was practical effects. Like if you go back and you look at the making of on the DVD.
Yes.
I want to say it was one of the last movies that Stan Winston worked on. I think it was his last movie it was because I watched the behind the scenes features and I was just crying and crying because he was a huge influence on me. Just if you see a shot that's not like the full Iron Man suit, chances are it's at least partially practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
Like the robots, those are puppets.
Yeah. Oh,
everyone loves the robots.
I certainly love the dummy. And matter of fact, the scene that endeared me the most to the dummy, besides the comic effects of the fire extinguisher going off all the time, is when he picks up the old arc reactor that's in the box that Pepper Potts gives to him.
Yes.
And the robot, the dummy, I guess is what he's called, the dummy lowers it down next to him, and he's like, oh, does this help?
Would it surprise y'all to know that people have written fanfic about those robots?
Not in the least.
It's not like, you know, porn fanfic. It's just like, you know, happy.
Well, I'm
fun.
sure there's that too.
There's probably that too, but I don't read that. Not about the robots, but yeah, no, there's some really good, like, you know, Jarvis and Dummy while Tony Stark was away. Like, it's really sad, but no, people have done some really good stuff with that.
Yeah, I'll bet. I watched this movie from the specific slant, if you will, on specifically Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the origins of Phil Coulson, because this is the first time that I'm aware of in the whole Marvel universe that we hear of Phil Coulson, as well as the trailer scene with Nick Fury. And so I watched it with that kind of slant, and I came into some interesting notes here. First of all, we see a lot of C-17s, so possibly one could have been retrofitted into being the bus.
Could have been.
We actually see Phil Coulson's first scene, and this entire movie, he's the same lovable protector that we know today. Season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of morphed him into a more complex character, but he's still got that lovable protector, altruistic sort of mindset to him. And he hasn't really changed the essence of what Phil is and why Fury really called him an Avenger.
There's a blog that I sometimes read. I'm blanking out on the name now, but it's somebody who writes about superhero movies from the point of view of somebody who's interested in fashion. And you know what I'm talking about, right? It's Hello Taylor. It's Hello Taylor at blogspot.com. I remember going back because she's gone through like all the Marvel movies talking about like what you can infer from the characters by their wardrobe choices. She was talking about like the evolution of Phil Coulson as seen through his wardrobe through the movies.
Okay.
And in this one, you can really tell that he was just kind of a last minute addition because the suit that he's wearing doesn't quite fit.
Right.
It's not really. And then by the time you get to Avengers, like he's wearing this like, you know, fitted, I think it's like a Versace suit. And yeah, he's much more of a presence there, and he's much more accepted to the audience. And for all that he's a guy in a suit, he's our guy in a suit.
I think you could say that even from here, because like right at the beginning, you're like, okay, what is this guy? Because he approaches Pepper and says, hey, we need to schedule an interview or whatever. It just comes across as a generic government guy. But at the end, I mean, he's saving Pepper from Obadiah Stane as much as he can. He's bringing some tech with him with the Section 16 door pick. He says, this isn't my first rodeo when he's talking to Tony Stark after the fact, trying to come up with a cover story.
He's the first one to say S.H.I.E.L.D. in a Marvel movie. I mean,
yes.
I remember he won huge points with me for that.
Yeah, this isn't his first rodeo. And from that, I wonder what Phil's history is. And I don't know how much we're really going to get that through Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I hope we get some of his history, beyond the relationships that he's had with some of the agents that we've come across, like Garrett and just the different agents. I want to see some flashbacks.
Yeah, I would really love to see like May and Coulson's first mission together.
I would love that. All these people talking about, what happened in Budapest in Avengers. No, I want to see what happened when May and Coulson were like young agents starting out and being awesome together. Because there's a story there. That they were like the Hawkeye and Natasha of their day.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Oh my God, I want to see this so badly now.
And then I really appreciate Nick Fury coming in at the end. I mean, we have the introduction of Nick Fury, Director Fury. We get the announcement that they're part of a bigger universe, and he talks about the Avenger Initiative, which eventually grew into this great, I mean, I know it was part of the comics, but in the cinematic universe, it grew into this great, number one hit movie, one of the highest grossing movies of all time, actually. So this movie started it all in more ways than one. It was a really good movie. I often compare Iron Man to Star Wars because it was same kind of, we're trying to do the leading edge sort of sci-fi, CGI, but the story is just so good. They had to cut it. They didn't have a lot of money, so they had to make it on a budget, and they were very meticulous and very conscious about what they decided to shoot and what they decided to cut into the movie and what they decided to make CGI. It all works so well.
Have y'all heard the interview with Jon Favreau on The Nerdist? I think it was from
yes.
2 weeks ago. Okay. It's good. All y'all who haven't heard it and you like Iron Man, listen to it. Listening to him talk about like how none of them really knew that it would turn into this thing was so interesting, and about how they didn't expect it to make that much money. They just kind of wanted to go in and have fun with it. And okay, this is also sort of related to that. When this movie first came out and y'all first heard they were casting Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, what was y'all's reactions?
I liked the guy. I liked him from Air America. I was interested to see how it would come out as a superhero and not a cheesy superhero. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of cheese and comic relief, but he comes across as a serious character at the end. He changes in this movie alone. Now, overall, do I like Tony Stark? No, I much prefer Steve Rogers because Tony Stark is a very flawed character, but Robert Downey Jr. plays him so well. It's just amazing.
This was actually out on DVD before I finally got around to seeing it. So I didn't really get invested that much in the hype and the news and stuff leading into it.
I remember Robert Downey Jr. from back in the day when he was like getting arrested all the time. Like I remember the whole busting in someone's house and falling asleep on their kid's bed while he was like really drunk thing.
Yep.
And then I remember after he got out of prison and he was in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is one of my favorite movies. And, he was just starting to get work then. He was just, sometimes you'll hear his name, but he's still mostly a punchline. And then when I heard they cast him, I remember my first thought was, well, that's brilliant. He is Tony Stark. Because if you go back and you read the comics, that is basically Tony Stark over and over again. He builds stuff up, he knocks himself back down, and then he has to build himself back up again. It's like this never-ending cycle for him, just all the time, whether it's him wiping his own brain or his alcoholism or, just whatever crisis of the decade it is. That's kind of the core of Tony Stark, is somebody whose superpower, for lack of a better word, isn't so much a superpower as it is his ability to climb back up from nothing.
He still doesn't exactly play well with others all the time.
Oh, no.
Everybody's flawed. Nobody's perfect. But he's a very interesting character to watch. I do enjoy it. It's my second favorite Marvel movie. So there you go. This movie had so many firsts. I mean, we see the Malibu mansion, which I miss very much. It's a gorgeous place with all the cars and the tech and everything. The first arc reactor, I mean, the one that's in his chest that he makes in a cave with a bunch of scrap. We see the first Iron Man suit, which is a great callback to the Iron Man name, actually. There's a lot of firsts in here that you just look back and go, man, that was great. I missed that. But it's interesting to see where the characters are today, too. I mean, Phil Coulson, I'll go back to that again. The guy has changed and he's not changed. The universe has changed. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has changed and it's not changed. One of the things about this movie is, we talked about it right away, it set the tone, it reevaluated the comic book movie, but it set the tone for all Marvel comic book movies. It's serious when necessary, tons of comic relief, tons of action, and a lot of good story. Great movies.
Okay, agree, disagree. The Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also, I would add, they have fun being superhero movies.
Definitely.
Yeah. Even if you go back to like some of the good pre-Iron Man Marvel movies like Blade, X-Men, X2, they were not quite as grimdark as you'll get with like, the Nolan Batman movies, but they still took themselves very seriously. I think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man ones were the ones that were possibly trying to get away from that, because Spider-Man's always been a, kind of a jokey type character.
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Yeah, even that compared to like just how much like exuberance the Marvel movies have, it didn't quite gel, I don't think.
You can't disagree with the screen presence of this movie, though. It's hard not to watch this movie and not like it. Or it's hard to watch this movie and not like it. Yeah, don't watch this movie and don't like it. Yeah, and the whole 10 rings thing, especially with Iron Man 3, the 10 rings comes back and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, so this is what it was supposed to, part of the 10 rings. Coming from a non-comic book background and then going all the way through Iron Man 3 and then watching this movie again, you're like, okay, it all ties together.
It's all connected.
Hashtag everything we own is all connected, yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, and then like even not just, I was going to say Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., like Jeff Bridges was fantastic.
Yeah.
And Gwyneth Paltrow, I know she's like a weird person with her website that advises you to spend like however $100 on quail eggs every morning. But
who doesn't like quail eggs?
She's really good as Pepper Potts. And, Terrence Howard, I liked as Rhodey. I think Don Cheadle a little more, but that's just because I like Don Cheadle.
There was an article a couple years ago about Terrence Howard basically coming out and saying if he regretted not taking the role in the second movie and how it had changed his life, basically.
Well, it wasn't so much that he didn't take the role in the second movie. As I understand it, there was a conflict about his pay. I
think they were trying to force him out. Like, they'd wanted Don Cheadle for the first movie, and he was unavailable. So they got Terrence Howard. And then when it came time for the second movie, they offered him so much less money that he would refuse to play the part.
Ah, okay. That sounds kind of plausible. Like a lot plausible.
But the article wasn't talking about how he didn't get the role. The article was talking about basically how it changed his life and how he viewed acting in general. And he said it actually, it was really tough to go through, but in the end, it really did me good to go through that and say, there is a world of possibilities out there for you that is not this. I guess that's him being optimistic, but it was interesting. I'll try to dig up the article again and post it, but it was a good read at the time. So, Haley, what is your favorite part of this movie? So many good parts to choose from, huh?
I really like when he's like testing out the suit before he finishes building it, and he keeps just like slamming into the wall and stuff, but he never thinks to put on a helmet or anything.
Yeah, especially the very first time when he does the 10% thrust and Slams into the rope.
So we went to go see Iron Man at midnight, if I remember correctly, because I was so excited, happy to have a Marvel movie out. And the theater that I went to, that part was just so unexpected. There was like this, it was like a squawk of laughter. Like just, it was amazing. That part was just, there's some theater experiences that are just, you know, like the best. And that was like in probably one of my top 5.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's a little bit unbelievable that he survives all that. But of course, later in the movie, when he's getting bashed around by Obadiah, that, you know, you're kind of wondering how he survived that too. But, you know, it was good comic, especially when after he falls from the roof, the dummy always sprays him with the fire extinguisher. That was the whole scene, from action to unbelievable to comic relief. It was just all great. Great theater. Lauren, what was your favorite part of the movie?
Oh, I would have said the testing, but that's been taken now. I would probably say that press conference at the end with the I am Iron Man, because it fits so perfectly. It was such a great ending line. And I'm glad that it saved us from all the years of, no, really, he's my bodyguard. And
yeah.
That went, into the late 80s or something?
It was something like that. It's like some ridiculous amount of time.
And then the reason he revealed it is because he needed to save a dog from getting hit by a car.
It happens.
Yeah,
it happens.
I really like that. They're doing, like, it was him just kind of, I mean, it was, on the one hand, it's great because he has an ego. And of course he's going to want to take credit. And he's proud of what he does. And, you know, he wants to show off this awesome suit that he did. And yeah, it's like, hey, we're doing this and there's no real secret identities here. It's the Avengers, and in recent years, they don't really have secret identities so much anymore, except for Spider-Man. And even he has a secret identity now, back after he made a deal with the devil, like the literal devil. Yeah, it was the perfect ending. I loved it so much. And then it goes right into Black Sabbath. And and I love the schematics on the credits. And it's so good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, this movie was so good in various different ways. You know, I'll go a little bit kind of weird, I guess, with my favorite scene. I was thinking maybe at the benefit, maybe between Pepper and Tony, but I think what really encapsulates the movie all on its own, except for maybe the ending, is when Tony hears from the reporter that Gomera, Afghanistan, was hit by terrorists, basically, the Ten Rings. And there was some nasty crap going on there. And he immediately was like, I know what I have to do. This was if you remember, his assistant from the beginning,
Jensen.
This is his hometown. Yeah, Jensen. This is his hometown. And he feels personally responsible to take care of this town. So he gets in his suit, flies all the way across the world to take care of what's going on there. And that is my favorite scene of the whole movie then. Maybe not your norm, but it kind of sets the tone for how Tony changes his mind and what the suit is capable of doing, and some bad guys get squashed too. And of course, afterwards, he gets to play around with some F-22s, and it's kind of funny. So do you guys have anything else you want to say about Iron Man?
It was the perfect setup for the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we now know it. That first appearance of Sam Jackson as Nick Fury, like, I remember when that scene was leaked online before the movie came out, and I watched it like so many times, like this grainy, poor quality, like cell phone recording that somebody made. And I just like screamed at work, and everyone thought there was something horribly wrong with me. And yes, it was just, it was such a magical time when that came out. And I still love watching it and just kind of thinking back to that time, like it was so long ago.
The first time we see Tony Stark with the chess piece is in that grainy surveillance video. And it was just totally kind of encapsulating, okay, we know that he's not the comic book, but this is Tony Stark. So it was pretty cool.
I remember before it came out, back when it was just an awesome trailer floating around, I think it was College Humor, or no, it was The Onion, did a news report that an awesome trailer is going to get it made into a subpar movie.
I think I remember that.
It's what I remember most from before the movie came out.
I'm kind of out of notes on this one. I mean, there's a lot of things I could say about Iron Man. I said my piece as far as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. goes and how it relates back and forth with Phil Coulson. But if you guys got other things to say, go ahead.
As it relates to S.H.I.E.L.D., not really.
Well, as it relates to anything, go. I mean, the movie.
Oh,
whatever.
no. I could go into like characterization of like all these different characters and how all this stuff, you know, you can tell from their reaction to this, what this means about their character. But seriously, we'd be here all night. We got places to be. Nobody got time for that.
Haley, you got anything?
The last thing that I will say is I did read the origin story again right before we started the podcast, and the original Iron Man suit was run by transistorized magnets.
You know, I thought of that as as he was making the original chess piece in the cave. I thought, you know, that looks like a transistor right there.
Oh, Lord.
So this is my second favorite Marvel movie. Have you guys internally ranked the movies at all?
This is either second or Cap 2 is second.
Yeah.
But Avengers is number one.
Okay, so Avengers would be...
I don't know. Avengers and Cap 2 are kind of vying for first place with me right now because Bucky. All my Bucky feels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I am going to have to lock Cap 2 into number 2, and this is number 3.
It would have been number 2, and then I saw Winter Soldier like twice in a week.
So all three of us are in agreement that Avengers is number 1, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. And then you two like Cap 2 as your number 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Iron Man is your number 3.
Yes. For me.
Iron Man or Thor 2? I don't know. Again, it depends on my mood.
Okay. I will definitely go Avengers, Iron Man, and then Cap 2 as my number 3. But that's just how I feel about it. I just like the tone of Iron Man a little bit more than Cap 2. And there was the whole getting betrayed thing, Hail Hydra, Cap
But
2.
then there was Bucky, and there was Natasha being awesome, and there was Falcon, and there was Cap being adorable.
I don't say it's not a good movie. I do say it's a good movie. I just like Iron Man better.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just me personally. It's personal preference. So
It is, yes.
Yep.
So you like Steve Rogers better, but Iron Man is your movie.
It's a more interesting story to me. Welcome to the SP is Wrong cast, right?
Yep.
Well, we thank you for joining us this week. We thank you for all your feedback. Keep it coming. We really appreciate it. Join us next week as we talk The Incredible Hulk. We talked about it, and we're going to go through the cinematic universe as it stands. So get your Marvel movie hats on. Go to legendsofshield.com. You can find all the ways to get a hold of us. And we've got a voicemail line, don't we, Haley?
Yes, it is 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
I keep telling you guys you're going to be great on the Gonna Geek Network, and that's because you can handle the blind toss, which Stephen Wandrew is famous for. So, thank you very much for joining us this week. We will see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Later.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to gonnageek.com and you will find all of our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod and can be found at incompetech.com. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual host and do not represent Legends, Stream, or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation. No infringement is intended.